That's just, that's just sort of guidance.
To me, this is important.
Good evening and welcome. This is the Town Board meeting, May 12th. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, Miss
Just so like, see, he was embarrassed he didn't wear his jacket.
We won't say anything.
This is a beautiful May night, and we're going to move right along. We've got a lot of things to hear about and talk about. So I'll start with the supervisor's report, which is customary this first meeting of the month. To the Town Board of the Town of Red Hook pursuant to Section 119 of Town Law, I hereby tender the following detailed statement of all monies received and dispersed by the supervisor during the month. And that is the month of March, ending March 31st. The opening balance was $2,563,025. Receipts were $3,675,973. Disbursements were $769,464, with a remaining balance of $5,499,500. There is also attached to this report in your folder a bank statement from our master account. There's also attached the CPF fund balance as of March 31st, and that is our Community Preservation Fund, which balance is exactly $344,415, and we'll be talking more about that in a little while. Also attached are budget adjustments for board approval. The A Fund, we had an increase in revenue of $28,505, and likewise had an increase in appropriations of that amount, money in and out for shared services. And we were able to add $24,000 to the contingent fund. In the B Fund, we increased revenues $12,385 and able to add that to the contingency fund in the B Fund. In the DB Fund, the snow removal overtime, we increased appropriations $7,349 and reduced the contingent fund because of all the weather. In the water fund, S&W fund, in and out for re-levied Rokeby water, we needed to transfer appropriations per attached memo from Hank Van Perry's regarding the major expenses for a pipe replacement work. And lastly, you'll see the last sheet, a request for a board resolution to use parkland funds to cover invoice from Weston and Sampson for Rec Park wetland mitigation. That's the new Rec Park extension. The amount requested for increased appropriations is $4,300, and we'll entertain a motion to that effect as soon as the supervisor's report is accepted. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. And if you just look at that last page, you'll see we are required by virtue of an agreement we have regarding the Parklands Fund to pass a resolution when using any of that money. The Rec Park Wetland Mitigation Project has an invoice of $4,300, and I resolve to use Parkland funds to cover the increased appropriation. We'll appropriate the fund balance and increase the appropriation line in that amount, and I so move.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay. We have a number of guests tonight, and so I think what we'll do is first, while I have everybody's attention talking about money, I want to talk about an Eagle Scout, and then we'll talk about other things. We are so lucky in Red Hook to have so many young men who have gone through the ranks of scouting and achieved Eagle, and we have another. We try to have one every year. His name is Benjamin D. Cosick. And Benjamin worked very, very hard on a project at St. Christopher's School, 30 Benner Road, and will receive Eagle and at an Eagle Scout Court of Honor there at the school on June 7th at 4 o'clock. That's a Sunday. He will be recognized, and his parents will be very, very excited for him, as all of his friends will be. His work was constructing outdoor stations of the cross at St. Christopher's School. So we have created a resolution, as we have for all the Eagle Scouts, whereas Benjamin Cosick has completed the requirement and, having been examined by an Eagle Scout Board of Review, was found worthy of the rank of Eagle Scout, and whereas the Eagle is the highest and most prestigious recognition in scouting, whereas Benjamin's Eagle Scout project was constructing outdoor stations of the cross at St. Christopher's School in Red Hook, and whereas through his achievement, Benjamin has shown leadership, devotion to duty, and is a true example of the best of our youth. Now therefore be it resolved that the Red Hook Town Board honors and commends Benjamin D. Cosick for his achievement of acquiring the rank of Eagle Scout, and authorizes this resolution to be passed to commemorate this achievement. And it is signed by the entire town board with great pride in Benjamin. Thank you all. Okay, I think we can move right into comments, and who would like to go first? Felicia, would you like to go first? Would you like the school to go first? How about the school goes first? We'll have the head man go first. You're welcome. Thank you for coming. Yes, it is. You'd be surprised how many are here tonight.
Yeah, right. So, good news this year. Let me start by saying, first, thank you for letting us come. And every year we go into budget time thinking, how do we maintain programming and opportunities for kids, and at the same time come in at or below the tax cap. Every year when we roll over our budget, we have a structural deficit because of the way that it's designed. And this year we were looking to close a gap of about $750,000 when we started our budgeting process. A couple things went our way, and we were able to get under the tax cap and maintain program and opportunities for kids. The things that went our way, we had some additional state aid, as you're aware. We had 7 retirees and 7 faculty retirees, 1 support staff retiree. And so we'll recognize some breakage when we bring in new employees at a lower cost. And we also had the TRS, the Teachers Retirement System, and the Employee Retirement System finally start to come down for us. So we were able to close that gap and then some. So this is the first year since, I think, 2009 that we've actually entertained the idea of program enhancements if the budget passes. A couple of program enhancements we're looking at. We're looking at a new instructional technology specialist, someone really to come in and help us implement a new technology curriculum in the elementary school in particular. We're looking at some basic IT support because we only have 2 full-time IT techs for the 385 employees and close to 2,000 students. So 2 techs running around, you can imagine that the wait time when things are broken, that wait time is way beyond what I think is acceptable. So we really want to bring somebody else on board. Also, we're looking at leaving some wiggle room in the system for the possibility of having to increase staffing in ELL or ESL support, English as a Second Language support. New unfunded mandates came down from the state. We don't know exactly what kind of staffing level we'll need yet, and we won't know probably until the end of September. But we've got to leave some wiggle room in the budget to be able to meet that need if it materializes. We're also looking at increasing the time for our college and career transition specialist at the high school. That's Peg D'Onofrio. She's just terrific, and I get really great feedback from students and parents on what she does for students up there when they're planning for college and life beyond high school. The other thing, Tom Casada, our athletic director, has been, I won't use the word nagging, but he's been reminding us that we're one of the few districts that does not have an athletic trainer. Pine Plains has had one for a while now, I think, Rhinebeck. So we're looking to buy some time for at least a part-time athletic trainer. And all this is subject to the budget passing. So we're under the cap. We're maintaining and enhancing program, and one of the great things I like to be able to say is that we're submitting an efficiency plan to the state that should result in rebate checks for any increase that residential taxpayers experience this year. Bruce will give you the detail on the numbers, but the efficiency plan, we're doing it as a county, 13 school districts, and you know, Bruce can tell you we built in additional cushion in the efficiency plan, so if certain things are knocked out, we still think that it'll be approved and be able to get those checks out to our residential taxpayers, and they'll be held flat to what they were last year.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
So Paul usually pretty well covers the landscape, but let me just add a couple of details to that. The budget that he just described carries a 1.98% increase expenditure year to expenditure year, and a 2.34% tax levy increase, which, as Paul described, is under the calculated tax cap. It's probably more accurate to say that it's at the calculated tax cap, because when you do the math, the percentages rounded to 2 decimal places both come out to 2.34%, but we are in fact a few dollars under that tax cap. So 1.98 on the expenditure side, 2.34% on the tax levy side, and under the tax cap. And as Paul said, likelihood that we will get an approved efficiency plan in our cooperative group that we've put together with the school districts in Dutchess County. And we had 2 requirements this year for folks to get the rebate checks. So last year you will remember that all the municipality had to do was stay under the tax cap. This year we must stay under the tax cap, and we must also have the approved efficiency plan. The rules continue to be a little murky on what qualifies. So in the group of schools that are working together, we have about a little over 2% of efficiencies, in the hopes that if some of them are clipped out by the Department of Budget, Division of Budget, when it gets there, that we're still over the 1% and we get an approved plan. Most of the efficiencies that are in the plan are district specific. There really are not very many. There are a couple, so I can't say there are none, but there really are not many mergers or shared services. They're mostly specific efficiencies implemented within a particular district. We just grouped that all together to put together a countywide plan for submission to the Division of Budget. There's not a lot left in our budget process. The board has adopted the budget. We had the public hearing last week. If you're talking to anybody that wants to come out and vote on the budget, they do have to be registered, so they can be already registered through either the county general election process, or if they've registered for the school district vote and voted in some recent years, they'll still be eligible. But if they're brand new, not registered, and they want to get out to vote in the school budget, they can still get registered tomorrow afternoon from noon until 9 p.m. at the Mill Road Elementary School in the 3-5 lobby. If they go to that tomorrow, they'll be eligible to vote on Tuesday, assuming that they show the minimum criteria of being a resident and 18 years of age and a U.S. citizen. And then next Tuesday, May 19th, is the statewide budget vote date. So Red Hook, along with all the other school districts in the state, will be voting next Tuesday, May 19th. We'll be doing that in the K2 gymnasium at the Mill Road Elementary School from noon until 9 p.m. So that's the day of the vote. And on the ballot will be actually 5 items. The budget that Paul just talked about. There is 1 seat on the Board of Education. So in a 5-member board, this is the year that we have 1 3-year seat available. There's one candidate running for that seat, and that's the incumbent Ed Mercier. We have our what's typically an annual vehicle bus proposition. We do everything we can to try to keep our vehicles right around a 10-year replacement cycle. After that, typically they start costing more in maintenance than what it would be to move on with a new bus. So we try to do a 10-year replacement cycle. So there's a $265,000 separate proposition on the ballot for 2 full-size buses and a smaller vehicle for transporting just a few students. And then the Red Hook Library is back on the ballot this year, and I won't say a lot about that because they're here to talk about it. But they are looking for a modest increase. You remember both libraries were on the ballot last year. Tivoli did not come back for an increase this year, so they will stay steady at their existing appropriation. And then finally, we have sitting with us for about 10 years now, we've had a student board member every year at the board table. That's a non-voting student board member, but we find that many of the issues we discuss, there's some valuable input that can come from the voice of a high school student. The regulation that establishes the ability to have a student board member calls for that to be reauthorized by the voters every other year, and this is the year that that has to happen. So that will be on the ballot as the 5th item that's there on the ballot. So that's pretty much the budget story.
That's it.
Is that high school student named on the ballot, or is it just the authorization to appoint someone?
It's a generic seat for a student board member that then comes to us typically as the president of the student council, then becomes the student board member.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question. I haven't heard this number in quite a while. What is the student population of the district these days?
This year's official number was 1941, I believe. It'll probably go down just a little bit more next year because we'll graduate a senior class that will be larger than what we think the incoming kindergarten will be.
Mm-hmm.
But my sense is it's stabilizing, and that's what the demographics said it would do.
Yeah.
At probably around 1900, 1925, something.
At one point it was up, I think, around 2,200.
23. We were close to 23.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that evolution.
It's consistent with all of Dutchess County. I think the one exception is Poughkeepsie. I think Poughkeepsie is the only district that gains students.
Mm-hmm.
And so many, how many kindergartens are there at this point?
We have 7 sections of kindergarten, and we
7.
have 130 kindergartners. And it looks like we'll have 7 sections next year. The numbers seem to be right in line.
Good. Any other questions from the board?
Well, if you think of anything, let me, always available.
Thank you for a good job.
Thank you
Yes,
for the
thank
thank
you.
you for the
Thank
time. I
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Great to have you. Okay, so who is speaking for the Red Hook Library, or are you both? You are one or the other?
Go right ahead.
Looks like you're stuck with me.
No,
Sorry.
that's quite all right, Erica. How are you?
I'm doing well. How's everybody today?
Everybody's fine. Sorry I missed the cake on Saturday. I understand it was
fantastic.
a wonderful day, yes.
Why miss cake, Sue? Of all the
I don't
things you could
know.
miss,
I don't know.
that's crazy.
It was.
I'll work on you with your schedule. So thank you for those of you who don't know, I'm Erica. I'm the director of Red Hook Public Library. And I want to thank you for your support last year. We had an incredible year in 2014. It's really excited as we're starting to pick up speed and find our stride. We were one of 10 libraries chosen nationwide to take part in the Libraries Transforming Communities grant, which we've been working on. It's about community engagement, and we've been very active in the village for the last year. And that's been really exciting. It was funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the American Library Association. We launched several popular new programs, held a month-long celebration of comics and graphic novels at the library, and we're invited to speak about what we're doing here at our little library on Long Island, at the New York Library Association conference, and at a national conference. So it's pretty exciting to think that what our community is doing here, other people want to emulate all across the country. We shared more than 82,000 items, books, periodicals, audiobooks, ebooks, DVDs, and other items. But people don't come to the library just to to borrow material. They come a lot of times for programs. And we hosted 517 programs in 2014, attended by 6,466 adults, 1,148 teens, and 3,928 kids, for a total of 11,542 participants. So what were we doing? What weren't we doing is the question. So we did everything, including a big read in conjunction with Bard College, the Read Local Red Hook Literary Festival with the Red Hook Community Arts Network, Bard College, and Oblong Books. And we were very happy to hear that some of our local merchants said that they had their best night ever on the night of the Read Local Literary Festival, but they were really busy, so that was great. We took part in Sculpture Expo with the Red Hook Community Arts Network. We learned how to dance Bollywood style, played Dungeons and Dragons, and watched an owl soar above our heads when we had our biologist friend come to us. We helped people enroll in health insurance, write resumes, do online job searches, find jobs, and use computers. Homeschoolers gathered weekly to learn about science, history, and geography. We built new worlds with Legos and opened our children's learning garden, which I hope you have all visited at this point. We hosted a science camp and a film camp in our children's learning garden. It really allowed us to expand and to do more than we could before. We learned Italian and how to swing dance. We had programs to get us financially fit, bone up our nutritional skills, and teach us about preparing wills and trusts. We hosted a cooking competition and even carved Spam competitively. We started Ladies Who Launch with the Chambers of Commerce, a group to help women in transition and transitional points in their lives with the skills and confidence they needed to re-enter the workforce. And of course, we read lots of books, shared hundreds of stories, and hosted a dozen local authors who taught us about the Revolutionary War, physics, and Italy, just to name a couple of things. Did we mention our Battle of the Book team beat out 24 other teams to take home the prize? And we have our trophy featured prominently in the Children's Library. And I was just with our team today. We were practicing for this year's battle, and they are ready to take it again, so be prepared. We also got to take part in the first annual Chocolate Festival and had a great time at our annual Monster Mash. Our library was recognized on the national level. We were one of 85 libraries out of the 7,500 across the country to earn a coveted 5-star designation from Library Journal. The work we've been doing as part of the Libraries Transforming Communities grant was the focus of an article in American Libraries magazine, which I understand if you haven't heard of, but it's a big deal in our very tiny world. The big news, which we received in 2014, but which we had to keep under our hats until this year, was getting the Best Small Library in America finalist award from Library Journal, and again from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which also came with a very generous grant, which we were very appreciative of. To be able to continue doing the work we love, we're asking for an additional $4,990 in funding this year. That's a 1.56% increase in funding. So we're under the tax cap, and it's basically, I heard you mention snow removal and the contingency fund. It's basically to cover things like snow removal, utilities, and keeping the lights on. For an average homeowner, it'll cost an additional $1.15 a year if a home is assessed at $250,000. So we had a blast in 2014 and are grateful to Red Hook for not only supporting us, but also for making us such a great library. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Erica.
Thank you.
Congratulations again.
Thanks, yeah, it's been great. We're doing more now.
We
though.
are so lucky to have 2 libraries in Red Hook. It's just hard to stand it.
Well, thank you
And
for that.
Felicia is going to tell us about Tivoli's.
The other library, right.
Yes.
So as you say, the town of Red Hook is lucky to have 2 thriving libraries. I'm Felicia Keesing. I'm the president of the Board of Trustees of the Tivoli Library. You may recall I was here almost exactly a year ago, and I put up a big piece of paper and drew a fancy graph up there to try to give you a sense of our financial position. We're fortunate this year to not be asking for money. That's the bottom line for us. We are not asking for an increase this year. One of the reasons we're not having to ask for money is that we've spent a good portion of the past year building up a creative and diversified funding structure for the library so that we don't always have to go back to the voters for the increase. So, for example, we worked with the Village of Tivoli this year so that we now officially occupy twice the space in the Village Hall in Tivoli, so that the library is doubled in size, but that's at no cost to taxpayers, which is a really wonderful thing to be able to say. And the other point that I wanted to really highlight is that after 20 years in the existing space, we were finally able to refurbish just this past month. We've replaced the carpeting, we've painted, fixed the lighting for the first time in 20 years, and rearranged the space, bought some new furniture, and that's been all through private donations from our very generous patrons. So the library is gorgeous. I'm joined by one of our new members of the board, Erica Kane, who's a lifelong resident of Tivoli, and she just lit up when she saw the new library. It's really gorgeous in there. And again, I want to emphasize that none of these things have cost the taxpayers any money. We've done this all with private support. One of the most fun things about the renovation that I just want to highlight, because there's a celebrity in the room on this front, is that the way we accomplished the renovation, in addition to private donations, was to draw on our patrons to have them come in and help us get the books out of the library so that we could replace the carpets and move the shelves around. And the easiest and most helpful way for us to do that was to have patrons come in and adopt an entire shelf of books. So we started an Adopt a Shelf program, and a bunch of people came in and I took home teen graphic novels, pets, and new teen fiction, thanks to my children. But the winner, as far as I understand it, of the most books adopted during our 2-week renovation period is Chris Shaw, right over here. Who I heard yesterday had brought in something like 150 books that she took home to take care of over the break. And at this point now, the renovation is complete, and we'd be happy to come and get them whenever you're ready, Chris. So that was a really wonderful thing, and it's allowing people to bring their books back and see the new renovated space. Our goal is in the next year to raise enough money that we can renovate the new half of the library, which we've just done some touch-up work on, and so we're hoping that we'll be able to do that. But again, our goal is to accomplish all of that without requiring any help from taxpayers. At some point, in order just to maintain programs and services at the library, we will have to come back and ask the voters for more money if they want us to maintain the same level. But we're determined to wring every bit out of the money that we already get before we do that. So that's where we are.
I have an idea. Maybe you could take the team that did the renovation on the road. We've got a few rooms here
Right
that
after
we
our
can.
house, yeah.
Right.
Exactly. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
That's great.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. That's just terrific. Lot going on. I remember that sleepy little Red Hook library when I was a kid, you know. It certainly wasn't that busy. Congratulations both. It's wonderful. Just wonderful. And I'm glad to see everybody here tonight. Thank you for coming. So, is there any public comment before we move into the rest of the meat of the meeting? We've got quite a bit to talk about. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You bet. So I have a couple of little announcements that I wanted to draw to your attention. One is that Memorial Day is a little bit early this year. Its services will be, as always, in Red Hook at the Memorial Park on Monday, May 25th. The parade will kick off at the high school at 10 a.m. It is sponsored yet again by the Red Hook VFW Post 7765. And we'll proceed to Memorial Park. Is everybody here going to be available?
It's on Monday, right?
It's on Monday.
Right.
Monday the 25th.
Yes.
And we usually line up about 20 of 10 at the high school. And so, and then after the service, which is always very moving for most of us, the high school band is involved, the junior high band is involved. There's generally a very inspiring speaker, and we then move on to the VFW, where we get to have probably the first outdoor hot dogs of the year. So it's a great day. 2 days prior to that, just so you know, the Methodist Church on Church Street and West Market Street has for 6 years been having a Memorial Day service that is a musical tribute. They have a fantastic organist whose name is Keith Niver, and he puts on a program that if you get roused by patriotic music, You will love this service. And it's about an hour, and they honor the men and women, and they usually have thematically one or another period of time that men and women have served the country as a featured era. And this year I believe it will be Vietnam. So on Saturday, May 23rd at 3 o'clock at the Methodist Church, if you would like to be roused to the height of your patriotism, you should go. I have been the speaker there for the past 6 years. This will be the last year I will speak as town supervisor, and it's been a great honor to be part of that that celebration. It really is wonderful. I'm growing every year. It's at 3 o'clock on Saturday the 23rd. And I wanted to remind everybody that May is Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month. We don't need to know anymore. There are many, many people who have suffered losses because of carelessness, and we want to pay attention to our motorcycle rider friends. Then the last, but certainly by no means least announcement is that the Red Hook Education Foundation is sponsoring in June, this is early but nevertheless want to draw attention to it, June 21st at the Spiegel tent at Bard College. They are sponsoring a program called All That Jazz. Doesn't that sound great? Mm-hmm. All That Jazz at the Spiegel tent. So it's from 5:30 to 9:30. You can call Bard College, the Fisher Center, 758-9000 for tickets, or go to the box office. It's probably going to be quite an event. So if you're a dancer, I'm sort of not anymore, but Bill probably still is, and I'm sure Jim will be there. So
I would come just to watch.
it's a great cause. The Red Hook Education Foundation has given a lot of money to support the schools. To mention a few things, they have purchased state-of-the-art 3D printers and multimedia classroom equipment, and they have underwritten enrichment programs like prize-winning robotics team. So they do good stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's all I have. Anybody got announcements on my right or left?
No.
Well, it's clear when the vote is on the school budget, right, to make that clear.
Yes, the school budget, I didn't catch whether it started, oh, yes I did, noon to 9 on May 19th, Tuesday, at K2 Gym in Mill Road School.
Right.
So it's a week from today.
Yep, Tuesday, May 19th, K through 2 Gymnasium, noon to 9.
I had a couple of things, Sue.
Good.
Just thank you to the Arbor Day folks and to the Cleanup Day people. I think they'll probably report in detail at the committee report night on the 27th, but I understand it was a rousing success. I think about 30 volunteers came out for Cleanup Day this past Saturday, wasn't it? I was out of town and missed it. And so thank you to all those volunteers, to Mickey Strowinski, Robert McKeon for organizing, and I believe the Highway Department helped out by collecting the bags afterwards, so big thank yous there. And on Arbor Day, the tree committee planted 10 trees, gave away 80 seedlings, and over 100 kids participated here at the information booth they always sponsor. Special thanks to Sue McCann, Nancy Roberts, and Jean Dunce for the wonderful lunch, and I'm sure Nancy will give a better report on committee report day. And Sue, would you want to brief updates on the grants?
Sure.
So the Trails Planner grant has been signed, and I guess at the last regular town board meeting, which I missed, Alta Planning was hired, and the start date for that is May 26th. Since then, we've received word that the Village of Tivoli will also be contributing to the funds for that, so now all 5 of our partners are contributing. That's wonderful. And with respect to the sidewalk grant, we're in the preliminary design phase. We've had 4 preliminary documents be approved, and the state-local agreement, as I understand, in the town hall to be signed and executed. And As soon as we do that, we can hire the consultant and get into the detailed design, and construction is planned to begin summer of next year. And then there was a sad thing to report. I wanted to mention Betty Abrile,
Oh, yes.
our special senior services committee member who passed away April 29th. There's a nice statement from the senior services committee chair on our website that speaks of her warm heart, and I can attest to that. She was a wonderful volunteer. When the senior services committee asked for help, she was the first one to raise her hand. She was active in the community with her church, and so she'll be sorely missed. She was just a very nice presence around the town and a great asset to all of us, so condolences to her family, and the town will certainly miss her.
Thank you, Brenda. Jim, did you have anything? Okay. Okay, so we had set at the last meeting a special town board meeting so that we could set a public hearing to consider transferring some money from the Community Preservation Fund to application to pay down some of the principal on two town farms that have been supported by PDR in the past. So Claire has the announcement of the meeting. Would you read that notice of the announcement, please?
Okay, notice of public hearing regarding the application of the Town of Red Hook CPF funds for debt service costs of the Gregg Family Farm and Kalina Farm conservation easements. Please take notice that a public hearing will be held by the Town Board of the Town of Red Hook on May 12, 2015 at 8:00 p.m. local time to hear all interested persons regarding proposed application of $225,000 from the town's Community Preservation Fund monies to pay a portion of the principal and obligations issued to acquire conservation easement interests in the Gregg Family Farm and Kalina Farm described below in order to preserve open space pursuant to Section 247 of the General Municipal Law. Pursuant to resolutions of the Town Board adopted on September 11th, 2012 as amended December 11th, 2012, the Town Board of the Town of Red Hook, Dutchess County, New York, acquired an interest in conservation easements held by Dutchess Land Conservancy with respect to I, the Gregg Family Farm, approximately 159.92 total acres, tax map ID number 627300760494, tax map ID number 627300677518, tax map ID number 627300854567, and tax map ID number 627300640370, all located at Rockefeller Lane, Town of Red Hook, Dutchess County, New York, the Gregg Family Farm. Closed December 28, 2012. And 2, the Kalina Farm, approximately 149.64 total acres. Tax map ID number 617200750305, located at 203 Rokeby Road, Town of Red Hook, Dutchess County, New York, the Kalina Family Farm, closed April 2nd, 2013. All interested persons will be given an opportunity to be heard in person or by directing comments in writing to the Town Board, 7340 South Broadway, Red Hook, New York, 12571. All reasonable accommodations will be made for persons with disabilities. In such a case, please notify the town clerk in advance at the above address or by phone 845-758-4606 so that arrangements can be made. Please take further notice that copies of said easements are available for review at the office of the town clerk, Red Hook Town Hall, 7340 South Broadway, Red Hook, New York, 12571. by order of the Town Board of the Town of Red Hook, dated April 29th, 2015, Sue McCann, Town of Red Hook. And this was posted in the Poughkeepsie Journal, the Daily Freeman, on our website. It was sent to the 2 villages, and it's posted out on the bulletin board.
Thank you, Claire Horst,
You're
our
welcome.
trustworthy and faithful deputy town clerk. You are great to be here when you have to read one of the longest and hardest. Thank you. So, it's a little after 8. I'd like to declare the public hearing open. And is there anyone with any comments? I would like to report to you that the CPF committee met this afternoon at 4, as we had invited them to do, so that they were out in front on these 2 farms and giving their consideration of what we are planning to do. And 6 of the 7 members attended, and they unanimously supported these 2 properties. They felt they are properties that are appropriate for CPF funding, both of them. So there was no question in their minds at all, and I was very grateful to them for coming out on a beautiful day and spending some time talking about it and remembering some of the discussions that we had over the Gregg Farm and the Kalina Farms. They were just such beautiful pieces of property.
But did they confirm that the easements which limit development on those 4 parcels would have been suitable for purchase by the CPF, had that money been available? That's what.
Oh, yes, that's precisely what they said, that they are.
Because their memo doesn't say that.
I just read it. They said their comments at the meeting were that both properties are appropriate for CPF funding. That's my report to you of the meeting at 4 o'clock. I'm just making it. You don't have it in
The
writing.
memo preceded the board meeting. This was Susan Israeti's memo to the board for background information.
This is background.
But they had been asked whether, at the time, if we had the money in the CPF, would it have been available?
And they said yes.
Is that what they said?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. They're totally appropriate.
Same.
Yeah, they're totally
Yeah,
appropriate.
absolutely.
bottom of the
That
first
report was
paragraph.
before the board meeting.
Yeah,
The
but
last
it doesn't
sentence
say
in the bottom of the
report.
first
No, no, that
Sure.
report was
Just
given to the CPF board before the CPF met today. So they didn't have time to type up their results for you tonight.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's just an oral
I
report.
gave
I mean,
it orally. I could have typed
We
it
want
up.
them to say it's suitable, we want them to say that it would have been available.
They said it's appropriate, and it wasn't available. The background on it was, as you know, the CPF funding
I know.
was not available.
But they were being asked to either confirm or deny, so they confirm it. That's it.
Confirmed that if we had had it, they would have spent it.
Yes.
Well,
Absolutely.
Okay.
And there was, they do have a chart that categorizes all of these, and these are high priority properties on their chart,
In the plan.
in the plan.
The plan hasn't been amended yet, so in the plan right now. And Sue, I apologize, I do not have the written resolution, but I can read it for you if you don't mind an oral resolution.
Yeah, I think we have it here.
Oh, no, that's the,
Public hearing, that's
never
originally.
mind, that's not it. That's
Right, I
establishing.
think we have the public hearing.
I thought I did have.
But I can read it for you.
Okay, if you would read it, that's fine. No, that's fine.
When you're ready.
Just wanted to point out that as they discussed it today, just for people who are watching and curious to know the details of this, that we have accrued since the depletion of the Community Preservation Fund for purchase of most of West Curly Corners Road. That entire road was put under conservation almost in its entirety in one easement, not one easement, but in one motion. And as such, we expended most of the CPF fund at the time. So right behind it came these 2 applications of these 2 excellent farms. The Gregg Farm parcels were gorgeous, and everyone knows that. And along with that one was the Kalina Farm, which was not on the highest plan. It was in Group 2, but nevertheless very high on Group 2. So these two parcels were very, very high on the ranked plan that this Community Preservation Fund Committee wrestled with for the better part of a year and a half, I think, making sure that their criteria were very specific and were very fair when comparing the multiple farms in town and ranking them. The total costs that were incurred by the town when we decided to do a bond anticipation note to pay for our share of the farms, the total amount for these farms that we undertook was $478,000. The Kalina Farm was an amount of $217,000. The Gregg Farm, $261,000. And what we are proposing, and we'll vote on in a few minutes, is that we transfer from our current Community Preservation Fund, which is in the amount of accumulated funds $345,000 at this moment. We are proposing to transfer from that to pay off the principal of these two farms, some of the principal of these two farms, in the amount of $225,000. So we will reduce the Community Preservation Fund by $225,000. We all have discussed it, and they were very supportive of it this afternoon. And Chris, if you would read that resolution, that would be wonderful.
Yes.
After you do, I'll close the public hearing and we'll have a vote.
Great. So whereas pursuant to a resolution approved April 29, 2015, the town board has held a public hearing on a proposal to apply $225,000 from the town CPF fund to pay a portion of the principal and obligations issued by the town to acquire conservation easement interests in the Grigg Family Farm and Kalina Farm. And whereas after review of the proposal and the CPF project plan, the CPF Advisory Committee has recommended such proposed application of monies in the CPF fund. Now therefore be it resolved by the town board of the town of Red Oak as follows. The town board hereby approves and authorizes the expenditure of $225,000 from the balance and deposit in the CPF fund to pay a portion of the principal on the obligations issued to acquire conservation easement interests in the Grigg Family Farm and the Kalina Farm. And number 2, the officers of the town are authorized and directed to all things necessary or convenient to carry out, to implement this resolution.
Thank you, Chris. So, if there is there any further comment on the part of the board before closing the public hearing? I guess this would be as good a time as any for you to speak.
Great idea.
Thank you, Tim. Brenda?
I think it's a great idea. I wanted to know what the villages had to say. Were they supportive?
They were represented. They were very supportive.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
great.
Yep. Yep. Brent was there. Susan Srati was there. Marion Johnson. Pete Hubble. Kenny Miglarelli. And one other, I think. Oh, I hate trying to remember. And I knew I would forget one. But they were all very, very supportive. So, thank you for asking. So, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay.
Was that on the motion, I'm sorry, or was that on the public hearing closure?
That was a public hearing closing. Yeah, yeah. And so now we will consider the resolution that was just read. And would someone like to make that motion to resolve that?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Any further conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, fine. Thank you very much.
And the text, Claire will have the text, so
And she will have a text, yes.
email already.
Thank you, Chris. Oh, John Hardiman. Sorry. I knew it would come to me if I let it go. It's John Hardiman. Yes, and they stayed afterwards to talk about farming. As busy as they are, we're all very enthusiastic about this. Okay. So the next subject on our agenda, I believe we have someone else leading the conversation on this. Bill, I think that's up to you.
Yes,
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, we've had on the agenda off and on for a while the building permit fee schedule, or an amendment to the fee schedule charged by the town of Red Hook. And there have been a number of meetings. Harry attended a lot of them. Nick Annis from the ZBA and Steve Cole from the building department. And as a result of that, I wanted to present to the town board the following. As the board may know, on January 26, 2010, the building department, Steve Cole, presented a proposed change in the fee schedules, an increase in fee schedules for the town of Red Hook. So at the time, the board was not inclined to do that, and the current schedule of fees really dates back to 2003. So since 2003, there have been no changes in our fee schedule. And based upon that and the current cost of doing business and the increase in all other fees, and we've done some research with what other towns have charged and are charging. Steve Cole prepared a proposed new fee schedule, and it's been provided to members of the town board. And it's titled Building Permit Fee Schedule. You'll see that it has the previous line for the previous fees and then a line for the proposed fees. I'll just quickly go over it with you if it's okay. The minimum building permit fee is recommended to be increased from $50 to $80. For a building permit for residential new construction and renovation, it's been proposed to increase it from $20 per square 100 per 100 square feet to $30 per 100 square feet. So there,
It says per square foot.
yeah, but we left out the 100.
100, I was doing, wow, okay.
And for non-residential buildings, for new construction and renovation, from $25 per 100 square feet to $40 per 100 square feet. For barns, pole barns, storage sheds, all agricultural buildings, the recommendation is to increase the fee from $15 per 100 square feet to $25 per 100 square feet, with a cap of $1,000. Building permit renewals would recommended be doubled from $50 to $100. That there be a separate line for electrical permits, because according to the building department, these are a lot more popular now than they have been in the years past. So, and it's necessary to keep their records straight, to separate the difference between a regular building permit renewal and electrical permit renewal. But the fee would be the same, $100. We've never before, apparently in the town of Red Hook, had any kind of a fee or a penalty where one goes ahead and builds something or makes an addition without getting a permit as required by law. And so the recommendation is that we double the calculated type fee. In other words, if it costs $50 to get a building permit to make a certain adjustment, you go ahead and do it on your own without getting the permit, contrary to the law, then it would cost you $100 once you go to the building department to get that certificate, usually like when you want to sell a property or finance it. Again, it's consistent with what other towns are doing. The certificate of occupancy fee would be increased from $100 to $200. The search for those certificates for residential would go from $50 to $100. for commercial would be at $150. And then there's a list of certain items that would require fees. For decks, it would go from $15 per 100 square feet to $25 per 100 square feet. Demolition, which again is a new item, which we've not had before, it's recommended that the permit for that would be $100, start at $100. Driveway permits.
I have a bunch of question marks, right? You're filling that in with 100? Demolition.
You're looking at an old one. You should be looking at the one that's in your folder.
That's where this came from. That was in my
That
folder.
was copied from the same, we all got the same thing. I don't know where you got that.
That's what I just got out of my folder. I got an old one. Holy mackerel. Okay, never mind.
Driveway permits have been $200, and what Steve said is that he would recommend a continued $200 fee for driveway permits. But there's, since then, there's been a bond required now of $1,000 when you obtain a permit for driveways. But that's refundable once the work is done. For fences, it would increase.
Excuse me, Bill, who requires that? How does that happen? Who requires the bond, the $1,000 bond?
I think probably highway department.
The highway
so they-
department?
To cover the apron costs if they don't provide the
Yeah,
the
but
apron.
it must be in our code, right? They have to put up a bond which is refundable, but would be used in case, in case their driveway impacts on.
They don't put the blacktop apron like
They
they want. No,
Could
yeah.
damage the road or something.
Okay.
Fire inspections, as it shows there, up to 1,000 square feet would be increased from $50 to $100. Fire inspections for more than 1,000 square foot building would be increased $50 to $150. Oil tank abandonment, replacement, or underground would be a proposed fee of $100. Again, we apparently don't have that at the present time. Pools, in-ground, above-ground, hot tubs would all increase basically $150 to $250 for an in-ground pool. Above ground, $100 to $155. Hot tubs and spas from $100 to $150. On the second page, there are 4 separate items listed, which would require, according to the building department, a fee schedule. If you were to repair your roof or replace your roof, it would be a $100 fee. If you were to ask for a permit to put up a sign, it would be a $100 fee. If you had a permit for solid fuel, wood, coal, or pellets, it would be a $100 fee. And if you wanted to have a standby generator, the permit for that would be a $100 fee. So those 2 pages contain the proposed building permit fee schedule. In addition to that, everyone's been provided with a copy of a document that says Zoning Board of Appeals fee schedule. This original document set forth the current application fees in 4 areas for the Zoning Board of Appeals. Any application for area variance, use variance, interpretation, or change of non-conforming use. So the recommendation of the chairman of the ZBA and everyone else who's been meeting about the subject and researching other towns recommends that those fees be basically doubled. So you'll see for application for an area variance before the ZBA, the fee would go from $150 to $300. For an application for a use variance before the ZBA, it would go again from $150 to $300. An application for interpretation, presently there is no charge for that. The recommendation, though, is that we have a fee of $100 for that. It's not as complicated as the other applications, but it still requires more than just a token look. And then the last, the application for charge for a change of non-conforming use would again double from $150 to $300. In addition to that, it's proposed that there be a paragraph added to any proposed change recommended to the town board in addition to those fee schedule adjustments from the ZBA, that a paragraph be established concerning an escrow account before the ZBA, even though it is covered under Chapter 70. But the language would be as follows. In addition to the application fee, this would be for anybody appearing before the ZBA. In addition to the application fee, an escrow account must be established in accordance with Chapter 70 of the Town Code with an initial deposit of, and it's been recommended that it be $500 per variance in the case of an area variance, $1,000 per variance in the case of a use variance, interpretation or change of non-conforming use. So it's basically an initial deposit of $1,000 with the exception of an area variance, which would just be $500. Or such greater amount as may be established by the Zoning Board of Appeals for the application, leaving it in the discretion of the ZBA. Any unexpended funds will be returned to the applicant in accordance with Chapter 70. And as well, Chapter 70 deals with replenishing the amount that you submit as an escrow, where the reviewing board requires more money to do the work.
I would just like to add to the escrow discussion, just that the language there is similar to the language that's in the planning board's current approved fee schedule. They have a very similar provision in their fee schedule. The amounts are different. Obviously, you should, think about those amounts, but in the case of the planning board, I believe it's 0.5% of the project cost, or $500, whichever is greater. And I think in the case of a variance, it's a little bit harder to base the amount on the project cost. And perhaps this, might be better reflective of the actual need. But obviously, the zoning board can always make a decision about a particular application. But this is so that when it comes in the door, it gets the application fee and it gets established, so that when they get before the ZBA, then they're in a position to do something with the application, so they don't come back and forth with the applications, which is sometimes what ends up happening.
The escrow does that.
Well,
Having an escrow.
because when they need, assistance and they need to have review, then they don't, then they have to set the escrow, come back, go back and forth. It becomes a bit of a problem. So this is what I think many other communities are doing. So that's where some of this recommendation came from.
Well, do the numbers go in this, in the code, or is it better that they just be on the fee schedule?
Well, the code itself does not establish the numbers. The code itself leaves it to the discretion of the zoning board to determine the appropriate amounts. So this is merely an initial amount, so that it's establishing a starting point, so that there can be an initial review of the matter. And then if you have a very complicated matter, obviously it's going to be much more than that. But for something fairly straightforward, that's a place to start.
So we basically then, I guess what I'm proposing is they're like in two parts. One is for the building department, the fee schedule on the 2 pages, which I've given to you. And the second is for the ZBA on those 4 application fees, plus the language about the escrow. And the attorney for the town has prepared a proposed resolution. Very briefly, it would be that whereas the proposed fee schedules for 2015 for the building department and the zoning board of appeals, which are the 2 which we have presented to you, have been submitted to the town board of the town of Red Hook and on file with the town clerk. So if we do vote for those fee schedule adjustments, then they would be prepared in a formal form and filed with the town clerk. And then therefore be it resolved by the town board by the favorable vote of not less than the majority of all members of the board, the fee schedules for the building department, for the zoning board of appeals for 2015 would be approved in the forms on file with the town clerk. So procedurally, that would be next. However, I do want to mention one third thing. And this comes about from reviewing what other towns have. And we find, for example, in the town of Pleasant Valley, there's a separate section there. If anyone makes an application for a zoning amendment before the town board, I'm thinking of the Wilms matter. Remember where there had been a mistake on the old zoning map? Mr. Wilms had to hire an attorney and ask the board to change it, et cetera. You had to have a public hearing like that. That if there's an application for a zoning amendment to the town board, not the ZBA, not the building department, not the planning board, to the town board, that the town board can require a $250 application fee. And escrow, if there's going to be an escrow required. So it's cited as kind of a separate section in their code. So I don't know whether the town board is inclined to want to consider that also. At the same time, we wrestled with these two proposals for the building department and the ZBA, or whether we should look into that further.
You know, I would suggest that those are so case by case, I think, because of they can be very narrow, they could be very broad, they could affect zoning map change, which is very different from a zoning text change in terms of the procedure. So we could think about it. What, can we take it under advisement and have a discussion about it?
Absolutely. I don't propose
Yeah.
that it do anything to interfere with whatever you might consider doing tonight. But it's something that we should probably, or you may consider wanting to look into.
I mean, your escrow law does cover it, so you can set an escrow, you just don't have an application fee for it. So, I mean, if you want to set an application fee, I wouldn't really object to that. I would just suggest that you think about,
Keep it the way it is with an escrow?
well, yeah, the escrow's fine, but I mean, maybe think about if you're going to set an application fee, think about what do you think that application fee should be based on? Is it a map change? Is it a, you know, is it a text change? Because the nature of the change can be very different, you know,
Well, you know,
seeker involvement and that sort
In
of
theory,
thing.
fees should just cover our costs. We
Right.
should not make money so that,
Right,
so when somebody applies for something, it doesn't cost the taxpayers, it covers just what it costs us.
right,
Now, we also have these escrows, so, you know, which,
which are for review fees, right.
that's right, or for fees, you know,
Right.
and escrows are good, but with my experience over 20-some odd years, when people are forced to put a lot of money in escrows, the money in the escrow accounts is very easily spent, more easily than I would like to see, and that's just a fact of nature. So it's something that we have to keep a good handle on. Like, I'm just a little confused with the proposal. It's true.
Yeah, the money's there, it's going to be spent.
That's right. You know, and of course, it's always refunded what's left, but, you know, many times, you know, it's spent, and that costs everybody. And as far as the zoning board, was the escrow going to be part of the new fee schedule, Bill? Because I know you, but
Well, the escrow already exists for the zoning board.
the law exists. Is it just a little note in it that,
Right. it was
as
rec-
part of the fee schedule, a note that it's at the zoning board's discretion, as our law states?
So the
Yeah.
note is there really to provide some guidance for establishing the application and the minimum.
I understand that.
Okay.
Well, but I didn't see exactly how, we don't have how the note is
Yeah.
going to be written in the fee schedule.
So it would be, as it is in the planning board schedule, it gets inserted in the same fee schedule, in the zoning board's fee schedule, you know, right where you talk
And
about the
then
application
basically
fee.
that would say that at the discretion of the zoning board, an escrow may be required. If so, the minimum deposit shall be $500 for area and $1,000 for use. Basically, is that what was
So the
said?
language that's from the planning board one is, in addition to the application fee, an escrow account must be established in accordance with chapter 7. Well, it doesn't say chapter 70, but in this case, I'm suggesting that you reference chapter 70
Chapter
because
70, yes.
that preceded your
This requires
adoption.
the escrow.
And I think the planning board one does too. They have a minimum, right? I mean, I suppose the zoning board could waive it if it wants to. If it gets an application and says, that's too, you know, it's not complicated. But at least from the perspective of when the application comes in, then that is going to be established so that they don't have to go back and forth, you know, several times.
So you're saying you're going to establish an escrow with every application?
Well, that's what most communities are doing, and that's completely
You
up to
know,
you.
that doesn't
folks.
necessarily make it right. You know, all the years I've watched the zoning board, there's only time that was necessary is one that we're presently dealing with.
No, I disagree. We've had a lot of.
There's been other expensive, but not
We've had
escrow.
several of-
They
we've had a
were
lot of
told they
other
were required to
applications.
reimburse, but that's
Right.
the truth.
No, we've had quite a few other applications in the last few years where they've ended up having to get.
If we're gonna put it in a fee schedule, I would much rather see that it reads exactly as it does in our chapter 70. The reviewing board may require an applicant to deposit an initial sum of money in an escrow account.
Okay.
They may
but-
require, it doesn't say that they have.
I understand, but that means that they have to get the applicant in, they can't have any assistance with the application review and the initial application. And then they have to establish the application review, and then they have to bring the applicant back for another review. So the purpose of this is so that the first time they come in before the board with something that, you know, it involves that kind of review, they're gonna have an opportunity to have that advice for that initial application.
The
It's-
way they've always done it, when it comes before them, it comes in and it's explained to the applicant what they need. And that would be the time if our zoning board felt that there's a need for an escrow, they say, you know, because it was in the fee schedule, that they may establish an escrow account, that you're gonna have to establish an escrow at that time.
Well,
Rather than tying their money up, because 90% of the time, at least, it's never
Just
been
gonna
necessary or
it's gonna
required.
require
Well, you know,
another appearance.
when you want to put a shed a foot closer to the property line, it doesn't make, and a lot of them that come in are
I
not much
understand.
more than
I
that.
understand.
And
We
I'd be
don't
re-
normally get involved in those, for sure.
Right, but pardon the expression, Chris, but I don't want every application to come, oh, we got an escrow, let's have the lawyer look at it. We have these boards to make their own decisions. They don't always have to be told what to do by our attorney. You and I may not necessarily agree on that, but that's my opinion.
Well,
I think there are a category of things that any layman can make a reasonable judgment on. So, you know, like you want to be a little bit
Exactly.
closer to a boundary or something. I mean,
And the majority of them, that's what they're all about.
I
Yeah.
understand that, yeah. But I do know that we've had some major complicated ones, and people build something on somebody else's property and things like that, and then you get into it.
That's right, but
And they're
collecting,
rare.
they are.
They're
But
rare,
collecting
but
the
they're
necessary money
expensive.
to reimburse our costs hasn't been a problem.
So it's a difference between must and may, is that what we're talking about?
well, this
You-
is,
you
this
come
is a
in with-
question of whether this board wants to provide guidance to the zoning board. That's really what this fee schedule is. You're the ones establishing the fee schedule, so you are establishing the guidance. It's up to you to decide what you want to do.
And in my opinion, it should say the zoning board may require an escrow as part of the fee schedule, and then we will set that fee. If it's 500 minimum, as Bill stated, I believe it was 500 and 1,000, isn't that what you recommended, Bill?
Right. 500 for an area variance, $1,000
For
a
use.
use variance, interpretation or change of non-conforming use.
And right now for the planning board, they must or may, I mean, chapter 70
Yeah,
says
yeah.
may require.
Chapter 70 says may.
What does your planning board say?
It says may.
No, that's chapter 70, but you actually have let's see, your planning
Because
board.
90% of the time it won't be needed, which means that we force us to hold their money, and then we've got to cut them a check and give it back to them.
I understand, this is your decision, but let me just read you what your planning board fee schedule says. In addition to the application fee, an escrow account must be established with an initial deposit in the amount of 0.5% of the estimated project cost, or a minimum of $500, whichever is greater. This account will be used to cover the costs associated with the application, including but not limited to review by and/or discussion with the town engineer, professional planning consultant, town or land use attorney, or other necessary specialists. Any unexpended funds will be returned to the applicant. Now, I do understand that there is a difference between the application process that the planning board follows and the application process
Considerably
that the
different.
zoning board follows, and I appreciate that. But that's where this language came from. I didn't just invent it.
No.
So I understand that you're saying that you think the zoning board situation is different. The reason this discussion is here is because, you know, I think there were some concerns about cost recovery and, you know, the need to establish at least some kind of fee for certain types of applications.
It wasn't just a cost recovery, it was that they had they had funds to pay for legal advice.
Right.
Which was
Right.
very important.
Right.
And
But I mean, the difference is, currently, a person could come in with $150 for an area variance and get it discussed by the ZBA. Now they would have to come in with 300 plus 500, and it was $800 it would cost them, as opposed to
Well,
150.
No,
So,
it depends. I mean,
and if it's a use variance, it would be
Well, plus they do the mailing,
1,300.
and the mailing varies a lot, but that's figured out, and you have to cut the
Yeah.
check at the meeting.
So that's quite a jump, right?
well, I mean, you could decide, for example, that in the case of an area variance, that it was up to the planning board, the zoning board, but maybe,
That's why we should just put in the fee schedule, the zoning board
You know what,
may.
Jimmy? This is up to the board. This language is for you guys to discuss and consider. I've made a recommendation, so
Well, Chris, what you just read about the planning fee, was
Yep.
that from the fee schedule?
that's from your current planning fee schedule, yes,
From the planning board.
from the planning board, right.
So your recommendation is that we require a,
Well, at least for some types of application where
Yeah.
you anticipate need. And if you
Mhm.
want to limit those types of applications, that might
I don't have a
speak to
problem
the issue.
with that.
That's why we should use the word may.
Well,
Yeah.
who's
Because-
making that decision at the front end
The zoning
when
board.
somebody comes
The zoning
in?
board of appeals.
Has the
No,
zoning, is
when
the
they-
zoning board itself the author of this increase of 100% in the application fees? Is that coming from the zoning board of appeals?
Nick Annis.
The zoning board of appeals themselves have not weighed in on that, no, that's coming from, because I've
Nick
been to every
Annis.
meeting and it was
Because
not
that
discussed at
100%
a meeting.
increase feels to me like a heck of an increase.
But Sue, that, I guess I would say with all respect, I didn't come up with that fee. That was something that I gather that Bill and Nick came up with. But I really think that's you and, your actual estimated costs of that, each of these types of applications. Those kinds of fees are not supposed to be making, you're not supposed to be making money off of those. Those are supposed to be
I understand
strictly
that.
administrative,
Right.
expense associated with this type of application. So you should make an evaluation as best you can about what those are expected to
And
be.
was that done?
I wasn't part of that discussion, so I don't know.
Well, for example, Pleasant Valley is $250, for a variance, area use.
I mean, it's the cost of the secretary who does all.
Most of the ZBA, that's our only administrative cost. that's correct.
Rhinebeck was the same.
Well, and the escrow for Pleasant Valley is 1,000 for area and 2,500 for use.
The escrow, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, one of the,
No, it's a lot more expensive in other towns, by the way,
but I don't know if it's a
to do
must.
business than Red Hook, I think. It's, the, well,
This is shall. This is shall.
$750
Yeah, in the Pleasant Valley example, it says shall deposit. Park, I mean, we've looked, hopefully the CBA looked at these examples we had, we've had them for several months. Hyde Park is 600 for a use.
Rhinebeck, $750 they had recommended.
For a fee or for an escrow?
For a use variance,
For a fee?
yeah. But that was a new one.
Wow.
The current one was $750 and the new one was $500, so they reduced it.
That's our neighbor to the south?
Yeah, this is Rhinebeck.
You're saying as a fee?
Yeah.
That's the application fee?
Fee schedule, yeah. Fee schedule for a variance, a use variance, currently was $750, it was recommended $500. Area variance was $750 plus $150 for each area variance requested beyond the first within a combined application, etc. So when we looked at the $150, it was very, very,
Yeah.
very low.
Uh-huh.
So I think it was, I don't know, Harry, was it just doubled it, right?
I think, yeah,
Reasonably.
yes. I think that was a,
It
And
wasn't
find
a-
yourself still lower than most of
And
the
Yeah.
it
surrounding
was still within range, yeah, it wasn't exorbitant.
Okay. That's the only question I have.
you know, and one of the issues is that is that the ZBA often needs advice, and they say, I've heard it said, that when the applicant comes in, they come in cold, so then the ZBA has no clue what they're coming for. And so they would like to have the technical advice there, be it from the building inspector and or the lawyer. And that's expensive.
Well, what is your pleasure? Shall we vote on this resolution? The resolution has been read, and I think we have enough backup material.
Well, as far as the ZBA fees go, there, again, just the 4 of them. The language on the escrow account for the ZBA would require a decision whether it's must or may, along the lines of what Jim says, along the lines of what the town attorney says, attorney for the town. So,
There is the remaining debate of whether it's must or may.
right.
Well,
And then
we could just
the-
set a minimum, escrow fee, couldn't we? You know, to take some of the onus off the ZBA, and they're having to,
Well, the fee, they would be set, remember, $500 for an area variance and then $1,000 for all other variances. So those would be the minimum escrow fee.
okay.
The question is whether they would be required, whether they must present that escrow,
Yeah, but they
or
wouldn't
whether
get
it would
any
be
of
in the
that back,
discretion.
right?
Huh?
They wouldn't get any of that back, so it wouldn't really be escrow because that fee is not returned, is that
No,
correct?
the
No,
escrow's
all
the
the escrow comes back.
Escrow
Escrows
does.
are-
No, but those fees
The
are not
$300 are
returned.
your fee, they're not
No.
returnable.
Yeah.
Right.
No, no.
So do I have to pay $300 if I want to put my tool shed 2 foot closer to the property line?
Yes,
That's right, and then
If
if
you
we
vote for
pass
it,
that,
yes.
you're gonna have to put 500 escrow too.
You need $800.
So who can make that decision when a person comes in to,
That's what our educated boards are supposed to do. That's why I feel the wording should be may.
well, when they,
It's provided for in our code. And, you know, so if we want to include it in the fee schedule as a guidance, so somebody comes in and Steve says, you can't do that, you need an area variance, this is what it costs you. The application is going to be $300, and your first meeting with the zoning board explains it to you, they may require an escrow, so be prepared, if they do or should require an escrow, you'll have to write a check $500 to the escrow to cover any of our other costs. In addition to that, when you come before the public hearing, by then they'll know exactly how many people that they have to mail the notice to at that meeting, or that's actually at the first meeting, and you have to, they write out a check and give it to the secretary for the mailing.
I'll
Let's be certified
offer
mail.
a compromise. For a use variance, the $500 escrow is may require it for a use
You mean
variance.
for an area variance?
No, yeah, an area variance, I said it back. For an area variance, the escrow would be optional, say may. For a use variance, I can see that there would be, one could easily require it.
That's right, but that's the discretion of our board, that's why we have these boards.
but then they have to go to one meeting, right, and waste 1 month waiting for the.
They always go to
board
one meeting,
decide.
and the idea of the first meeting is that the zoning board explains to them that one, there's gonna be a public hearing at the subsequent meeting, two, what their mailing fees are going to be, and then they could also say, that, you know, our fee schedule, you know, because of Chapter 70 also provides for the possibility of an escrow. And we feel because of this one, you're gonna have to set up the escrow ahead of time before we incur our expenses. Or if it's a simple one, as Harry said, where they're putting the shed a foot closer,
Right.
you know, at the zoning board's discretion, they won't have to set up an escrow. They still gotta pay their $300 application and all their mailing fees. But they won't have to tie up another $500 or $1,000 or what have you, you know, in the escrow account that we would have to hold for them and then return to them.
Yeah, I
And in
didn't,
theory, if they wanted to, they could push us for interest on that as well. You know,
well, I think if the applicants come in, say there are 6 applicants on any given night, and they come in and they're all prepared to pay their fees, they will quickly be sorted from the wheat and the chaff, those that are complicated and those that are not. And those that are complicated, the ZBA is going to say, we think that you need a $500 escrow deposit because when you come back next month, we're going to need some counsel here. It's a complicated
That's exactly
affair,
what I'm saying,
right?
Sue.
So what you're
Intake
saying,
is not supposed to be at the ZBA. Intake is supposed to be through the zoning enforcement officer who is taking the applications in, reviewing them, and, forwarding them to the chair to be placed on the agenda.
yeah, but eventually they get to that agenda and the board hears it for the first time.
Right.
And the board says, this is a simple lot line adjustment, or this is a simple shed 2 feet closer to the line than it should be. We won't require an escrow for that. On the other hand, here comes somebody who's going to build a 3-story building instead of a 2-story building, and clearly that's going to take a lot of work.
Well, that would require planning board site plan and the variance and everything else. 90% of the cases that come before them, when they come down to that initial meeting, they sit and the zoning board explains the mailing to them, and then explains everything they want. They want a good, accurate map, preferably with the property lines marked, so if they're moving this shed a foot closer, they know exactly where the property line is. And, occasionally they have to, the client will have to get a survey. Many times they've already had that, or they know right where the corner stakes are, and then they use that. But they explain to them exactly what they want before the public hearing. And then they set the public hearing, and they appear before them the following month for the public hearing, and hopefully everything that the zoning board has asked them to provide.
Well, often the building department tells them what they need before they go to the meeting. They're told.
I've never been to one zoning board where they had everything that the zoning board of appeals wanted them.
Really?
Never once have they had everything. That's why they have that initial meeting.
And so the ZBA has not weighed in on this yet?
Not to my knowledge. That told me.
The escrow business, you mean?
Or they haven't?
Well, I thought the ZBA had weighed in on this, on the increases in fees.
The chairman gave Bill what
Oh, the
he
chairman
thought
did.
they should.
Oh, okay.
I don't have the problem with them going to the meeting first, the first meeting, as just a discussion of what they're asking for, and having the escrow determined at that time. By the zoning board. And that's just a matter of the difference between must or may.
Exactly.
So are we in a quandary, or are we ready to vote?
Well,
I would suggest that we start out softly and start out with the may, and review it next year, and say, and see if maybe there should be a change, if we require us.
we could revisit it. Yeah, I thought that too, that, we could start out by leaving it to their discretion as they hear the various cases. And if that muddles, if there's a muddle and it doesn't solve anything, then you're right, we can move on.
You talk to people in the community right now, there isn't one builder, one developer, one person that comes before these boards that don't feel they're already being beat up substantially when they come before the planning board and or the zoning board in the town of Red Hook.
Well,
That's just a
I think
fact
that,
of
I
life.
think that what I hear most is frustration that they have to keep coming back. If we can do anything to avoid their having to come back and back and back. They solve one question, they come back. Suddenly another question erupts, they have to go out and come back again. And that's what is killing them, is 3 or 4 months of postponing decision because they can't get it together the first
Well, that's,
or second
that doesn't
meeting?
happen before the zoning board, except in complicated cases like the
Yeah.
one that's before them right now. And that's where the public hearing has not been closed, but left open.
There isn't any public hearing on a lot of these things or anything else. It's
No,
just
that's right.
pro forma things.
Well, they all always have a public hearing, but,
Yeah.
it says, they're not complicated issues, so it's not a big deal.
Do they have to have a public hearing when
Yeah.
somebody wants to move the tool shed?
Yes, they do. They have to, and as I said, legal notice has to be sent to all the neighbors within
Okay.
300 or 400 feet.
So
Yeah, that's
that's
expensive.
2 visits anyway.
It is,
That
but-
certified
Do it, yeah.
But they pay that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The secretary figures out exactly how many certified mailings have to be sent out, and they have to cut them a check. Actually, they have to have that money there. They won't schedule a public hearing until they get the money to them, which is the way it should be.
All right, I'm comfortable with raising it to 300 based on what you say the neighboring communities are charging. I think there should be an escrow. How much can be determined by the zoning board of appeals as far as I'm concerned.
You give them the authority to do it.
So.
I'm good,
They've had the authority to do it, right?
Well, so if we're gonna put it in the fee schedule, that's why I said we should put that the zoning board, we're giving them the specific authority in the fee schedule.
That's what I'm saying.
And then just setting either the 500 or 1,000 of fees Bill suggested, which aren't unreasonable if they decide that they need a fee schedule. But I don't think that, in my opinion, it shouldn't say that they must set up an escrow. That's why we have them, to make that decision. Things before the planning board will always, engineers or things like that, where our site, our planner would look at that. And our engineer will review their engineering plan, so it's a little different situation. Actually, a lot different situation.
Okay, well, we can adopt, I think I'm hearing that I can call a vote on the resolution as it appears here, which does not talk anything about, let's just do one thing at a time. Did someone make a motion to resolve to adopt the fee schedule? I will do that. I move that we adopt
Of the
the
building permit, of the building
fee
department?
schedule,
The fee schedule, not
the fee schedules,
both fee schedules, all fee schedules.
the fee schedules, all fee schedules.
Including-
That's what
The two-
the resolution is about, is it not? Both
Yeah,
both
the
of
two fee
them.
schedules.
Yeah.
ZBA and the building department.
This says proposed fee schedules. Do you want to
Correct.
name them?
I think it should say the building permit fee schedule and the zoning board of appeals fee
Okay,
schedule.
let's do that. Let's amend
And
it
it
to
has,
say
it says
that.
that.
Okay. So that's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? What are we going to do? All in favor?
All right,
Aye.
Thank you. Now, regarding the
escrow.
escrow,
You don't have to do anything about the planning board escrow, right?
no. The zoning amendment request to the town board. Oh, no, that's the town board. We aren't going to deal with that tonight, are we? Or are we?
Well, it was
Please say
recommended
no.
that as part of the.
What was that you
I
said?
said, please say no.
Want to do it today?
Not today.
Okay, so the escrow
So,
account
well,
regarding
Can I
the,
make a motion, Sue? Then you could shoot me down.
okay,
I would just put and include it as part of the zoning board of appeals fee schedule that the zoning board of appeals may require an escrow account as established or as provided for in our chapter 70 rather. And that amount is proposed to be $500 for an area variance and $1,000 for a use variance application. And what were the other ones Bill, you?
It's a
non-conforming use or interpretation.
and change of non-conforming use.
And was it the same amount of, was it
The same amount for the other three.
all 1,000?
Yes.
Yes. So it tracks the four application fees that the, comparable escrow accounts would be 500 for the area and 1,000 for each of the other three.
Yeah, for the
That
application.
seems way out of line for the interpretation.
Yeah, the interpretation is only 100 though, the fee.
Yeah.
Because
So that's
interpretation
not-
usually doesn't take them much at all to do, yeah.
Depends.
Well, Chris, you want to just change that to,
You guys decide what you want to do with that.
well, like for an interpretation, we didn't used to charge for an interpretation period. Now we want to charge $100 for the fee. But do we require also a $1,000 escrow for interpretation?
That's what's suggested here.
That seems very high, very extreme.
Well, then change it. Have it included as, in the same amount as the area variance.
So I would propose as part of that motion that the area variance escrow, the starting fee, the zoning board of appeals may establish an escrow. And should they do that, the application for an area variance will be 500, an application for interpretation 500, application for a use variance 1,000, an application for change of non-conforming use 1,000.
Is there a second?
Is that a motion?
I presume it was a motion.
Yes, yeah, that, and it's, I said may, and that's why I want to make, as I said, that was
Okay.
just a proposal to get us off this
I
subject.
second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 He didn't say.
Aye.
We'll come
I would
back,
say aye just because
I mean, we can
we'll
always.
come back,
it'll be
next-
subject to some other.
we'll come back next year
Yes.
for further
Found these things here.
review.
Establish these.
Okay.
Can I
So-
Sue, can I just suggest that as you, I know these are marked up, but you understand what the numbers are, but when you get them retyped, would you please have whoever's doing them put on each of these fee schedules approved by the town board on, May 12th? So that as go forward, if there are changes, you know which fee schedule is the one that's supposed to be in effect right now. Okay?
Can we make it in effect as of tonight?
Sure, because you approved it. But just,
That's what you said, today's the 12th.
somebody's gonna be
So,
making it beautiful.
Claire,
Understand?
I will have typed up whatever these two documents are with the language that we voted on.
Good,
And then I'll just give them to you, right?
thank you.
And that'll be part of the
Right,
resolution.
just make sure you put the date on it. That's all I'm saying.
Today's date, right?
Yep. So there's no confusion.
Okay.
Okay, moving right along.
Good.
Thank you all.
Moving along.
Next.
Okay, we once again have looked at energy suppliers because, as you remember, a couple of months ago, we reviewed the possibility of changing from Central Hudson as our electric supplier to other electric supply companies, and every estimate we got at that time was less expensive than we are currently paying. We were waiting for a response from the municipal energy program, who was putting together a group of towns that belong to the Association of Towns and hoping to get a good quote on cost of electric. And we waited to hear from them, and in fact, that did not pan out as expected, so now we find ourselves looking at estimates again. And we have estimates from two suppliers. One is Viridian, which their quote includes 75% green energy, and they are quoting 0.0824, 8.24 cents per kilowatt hour. Direct Energy is proposing 7.701 cents per kilowatt hour. Both of those are less expensive than the Central Hudson average past 12-month cost of 8.462 cents per kilowatt hour. So the quotes we got are for 24 months. It's a fixed price. And the savings from the company I mentioned first, Viridian, for over a 2-year period when compared to Central Hudson's cost based on their average cost today, or over the past 12 months, is $635.58. If you go with company number 2, Direct Energy, the savings over a 24-month period is $2,178.74. So that's where we are. We didn't act before, and I guess perhaps it's time to act. We were making the assumption that the usage for 2014, that's what we based the numbers on, which were 140,149 kilowatt hours.
Well, I'm happy to save $2,178 over 2 years, so I would make a motion that we adopt the Direct Energy 10% green. There's a contract here. I'd be prepared to sign it tomorrow and get it out of here so that we can start saving money.
I'll second that, sir.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, I just want to add that I also agree with you, but I really am hoping that in 2 years we can get more communities together to join us so that green is more affordable. I mean, of course, I prefer more green, but I do go with you at this time.
I'm with you on that, Brenda, but with all our solar panels and everything, we've probably been far greener than most.
Yes, you're- so,
Okay, thank you, Brenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you for the contact and all the work on that, Brenda. I appreciate it.
you're welcome.
All those prices, yeah.
Relationships.
Okay, finally, or almost finally.
On the one agenda item we're skipping now.
Yes, I can explain that. I received a phone call today from Mayor Blundell, whose board met last night, and they had some questions about the naming of some of the roads that were suggested and wanted to have some further information about that. So he called and asked if I would be willing to table it. I think it makes no difference. It's, you know, we will vote on it eventually, probably in a month.
Okay.
The next 2 items were, you'll recall that we expanded the tree committee to allow for more persons involved in the tree committee, and there were 2 who are waiting in the wings, who are Hop Michael and Kathy Michael, who are very eager. They've attended meetings, they're good workers, and they're ready to get started. So they would like to officially join the tree committee. I would like to propose their names. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That'd be great on that committee.
Thank
Yes,
you. And the second is, we had a couple of other inquiries about the Ag and Open Space Committee and have not acted on them. I think that 2 or 3, Bill, and you know these people
Right,
better than
yeah,
I.
we have the letters, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, the Ag canceled their meeting last month, so I think both ladies were supposed to be there.
Uh-huh.
And so, I mean, I've never met them, and the Ag and Open Space hopefully will meet this month, the last Tuesday of the month.
Are you speaking of Talea Heckman
Yes.
Taylor as one?
Right.
And how many vacancies are there?
Talea Heckman Taylor, and the other, well, there are actually 2. The other is Hannah Beal, B-E-A-L.
Is she the one who's just a recent graduate and may still be at Bard and is very interested in farming, I think?
There is a representative from Rokeby on the Ag Committee, right?
Right.
There is already, currently.
Right.
And the 2 additional people from Rokeby would put 3 Rokeby farmers on that committee.
Well,
As
Talea
I saw,
has-
Talea is not,
She's from Montgomery Place.
I understand, but weren't there 2 others from Montgomery or just 1?
Well, I think they
No,
live,
I don't mean Montgomery, I mean, I'm sorry,
Rokeby.
I meant
Rokeby.
I
Rokeby
mean, they
Farm.
live there, but whether they're affiliated, I'm not sure, but yeah.
But she started a vegetable garden in Red Hook, she says.
But, I mean, in other words, the Ag and Open Space Committee has not recommended them yet, so.
No, so
Mm.
shall we table it until they
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
All right, then let's move on, that sounds fine.
As soon as we meet again, I'll ask them to make a decision on what their position is.
Okay, fine. Then we have a member proposed for the St. Margaret's Committee, who is Tina Keel, who is well known as a member of the Keel family of the business Keel's Farm Equipment in Red Hook Village. And she is interested in serving on the St. Margaret's Committee. She's 8 years member of the Rhinebeck Area Chamber and local business owner of Bella Fiore, as well as being the wife of Kim Keel. So she's interested in St. Margaret's Historic Committee, and we're going to have more discussion about this, but I would like to just go ahead and, with her interest, vote to appoint her. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, well, we're on St. Margaret's Committee. Chris has a little bit of clarification on some background about St. Margaret's, as best we can divine it.
Define is different. Materials, if I could.
I don't know if you all have the payment agreement to us.
Oh, here, I'll just give you a copy of some, it's just sort of
Okay.
it's a bit of a hodgepodge, but just some documents that have been referred to by the committee from time to time, and I thought it
Okay.
might be useful for you to just have
Thank you.
some bits and pieces. The first one is the preservation covenant, which is, as a reminder, because of the grant funding that you received on the property. You need to be aware that any work on the property is subject to that covenant, and one of the particular provisions is starred on the second page, which requires approval for any alterations or work, demolition, that sort of thing on the property. And so just to call your attention to that, because it's important for both you and the committee to be aware of that. And then the next document.
So what we're
Sorry.
saying is we need state approval
Yes, yes.
before any
Yes.
change or amendment to that property is made.
Pretty
Okay.
broad application to that.
Okay,
right.
okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then, and my suggestion would be that someone in town hall be the person who is the primary contact with
Mhm.
parks. In the past, you had Paula doing that, but you
Yep.
should probably designate someone who is that primary contact, very familiar with the
Mhm.
parks process, so that you can facilitate that. So second, you have a copy of the deed for the St. Margaret's property, and that is the deed that has the restrictions on the use of the property as originally agreed to between the town and Hannaford's. It provides that the premises are to be used and occupied only for municipal uses, cultural, civic, and educational uses, or leased to a not-for-profit corporation for uses directly related to such corporation's not-for-profit purposes, in no event to be used or occupied for retail sales of goods or services or other commercial purposes, whether commercial or not-for-profit.
Commercial services in general would preclude a lawyer.
Absolutely, preclude any of those things.
Any-
You took this, I gather, you took the deed as a negotiated matter at the time, and those are the conditions under which the deed was accepted. There's also an easement that is supposed to be constructed and maintained by the town with trees. And I'm not sure that those trees were ever constructed at any point, because originally I think the intent was that development was going to occur, but
There were trees
some
put there, but I think
requirements
they were put in the wrong place.
I wrote a letter to that, to inquire about that. There were, I think, 1 or 2 of the array of trees that were used as kind of a buffer, planted by the tree committee, and they discovered after the fact, maybe 6 months or a year later, that at least 1, maybe 2 trees were slightly over the boundary of the property that was to be associated with St. Margaret's. So I wrote a letter, and this was probably at least 2 years ago, asking if we could have a decision from Hannaford regarding those trees, or should we move them? Would they grant us leaving them in place, or shall we move them? And I have not heard, and I haven't pursued it, frankly.
So that's the condition of that's the deed itself.
Mhm.
And then you see attached to that, there's a copy of the site plan that lays that out. I also just included a copy of one of the pages from the site review.
Excuse me.
Which talks about some of the features on the site. And then there's a copy of some communications with the Hannaford's in-house attorney. Several years ago, we began a discussion about trying to limit those covenants to make the property more usable. And we did not conclude those discussions. I think at the time, those back and forth discussions went back to the committee. The committee was taking under consideration, what it wanted to recommend, and I think that's kind of where it lies at this point. So I don't think that we have, we haven't concluded any of those discussions with Hannaford, but certainly that is something that we can still try to pursue with Hannaford, but I think we need to figure out what it is that, can most productively be done with the property, and then see what you can do to loosen up that covenant, because it is very restrictive, frankly. It's very restrictive.
It can be leased to a not-for-profit.
Right,
That's
but,
one of the things that has been mentioned.
right. So, and as Sue indicated, there is a separate payment agreement that was entered into in connection with the development of the road, the Hanford Road. And I did inquire, Sue, with the clerk's office, and Claire was kind enough to help me access some of those documents today. I was not able to locate a deed to the road. I was able to locate a dedication agreement. I was able to locate bond and release of the bond for the construction of the road, and the payment agreement that provides for payment of $200 a year towards the maintenance of that road. But I don't see the deed to the road, which I would normally see in those files that she, found for me. So we may have to check with the county on that, okay? In order to get the full file on that, because it wasn't, where I would normally expect it to be in the files.
It would be in the town clerk's
Yeah,
office if there were one.
she maintains files for each of the roads that are accepted with the dedication and the resolution and all of that. We could wait until Monday, until she comes back, and ask her to make a further search, and then if we
Yeah,
can.
why don't we do that,
you know,
and then start?
And then go towards
Go
the county
further.
if that's what we need to do. That would
I
be
think
my
that makes
suggestion.
sense, yeah.
Yeah, okay, we'll do that.
Could this be put to use by Bard? You see anything,
BART is not for profit, so I would think they would fit within that covenant.
or the school system?
And cultural, it says for cultural,
Certainly.
civic, and educational uses.
Right.
Right.
We're supposed to be maintaining
We're doing it,
we're supposed to be maintaining that 20-foot evergreen buffer?
Yes, yes.
Well, we are faced with a number of issues on that property that need to be addressed, septic being one, and water. I mean, it's not just cosmetic stuff, it's
No.
big investment, So,
So this is just background information.
yeah,
for
good.
you,
It's
so-
good to have it all in one place, and I thank you for digging through all this. That's great. So, where are we? I guess we'll wait for Sue to come back
Sure.
and see where we are with the
That's
road.
just road information, right, but I think
Yeah.
in terms of this kind of information, you probably then want to think about it and think about what you want to do with the property.
Mhm.
you know.
Right. I think we've said enough times, we don't have to spend too much more time on it, that the amount of investment is going to be significant. And the only way I can think to do it is to pursue more grants and be lucky enough to get one, you know, and it would have to be a substantial one. So, and that it's not that that's not possible, it is possible. With the right partners, we may be able to do that. Okay. Next, I have noticed among correspondence, have we finished, I've lost my agenda. Have we finished the items on the agenda? I think we have. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, there was just this, I was to announce that there is a vacancy in the Senior Services Committee of the secretary. And so we will be needing to appoint a new secretary, and we haven't researched that to see who's on file and who's interested. But we will take care of that next time. Sheila Franklin, after yeoman's service in so many capacities, has decided to retire, fully retire, excuse me, from town work. And we thank her for all the good work that she has done in so many ways.
And we need members on that committee as well.
Thank you, thank you. Must be the pollen, lots of pollen. In terms of correspondence, I don't really have anything other than there was a letter from the Department of Motor Vehicles that you should understand there has been an amendment to the laws of the executive law, adding a new section to Chapter 190, Section 101, that the word handicapped must be removed from any new sign or signs. And those signs must be replaced if they contain the word handicap. The Department of State will create a new universal symbol of access, which will depict a person leaning forward in a wheelchair, portraying a sense of movement. Any new signs related to accessibility for the disabled must depict the new universal symbol of access. All other signs must be replaced. It looks like this. And it includes signs that are hanging from cars to identify people who received special parking permits. I believe this indicates that we are allowed to use up whatever parking permits we have, but we will eventually see this symbol.
Like the wheelchair Olympics.
Yeah, we will eventually see this symbol as the disabled.
We gotta take the word handicapped out of all the.
It says, yes, I do believe that's what it said. The permit does not say a word about handicapped, and it says the word handicap must be removed from any new signs or signs being replaced. And a new symbol. So, someone at the state is busy passing laws. That's all I want to say.
Bureaucracy at its best.
It is that. Now, I believe that that is what we have for the agenda tonight. Is there any public comment? Do you have anything? Okay.
I have
Okay.
something of interest. My grandson called me tonight.
Okay.
He's a forester. And apparently there's a law that I'm totally unaware of, that if you have a certain number of acres that's currently in existence since '74, a certain number of acres and that is forested, you can have a substantial reduction in your taxes for a period of time, in your property tax. And the state is in the process of reviewing that and changing it so that it can be a smaller parcel of land. He thinks maybe it'll be only 25 acres, and if the parcel of land, be it open land be it wetland, be it land that is not being used, as long as it's not being used, there will be a substantial reduction in taxes, which means our taxes. So we could be losing tax revenues, depending upon, this is a work in progress, being done by the state. And this information comes from the Watershed Agricultural Council. I'm sure he'll tell me about it weekly. My
May very
grandson.
well.
Oh,
I thought that if you had that forest, you had to be actively managing that properly. I don't think it's just that you own it. and leave
Well,
it
he didn't go
alone.
into gory details, no. But this,
More to it than that, I think.
what,
handicap may be passed, but
So there's a push to give the smaller guy with smaller parcels a little
it
break.
would be
if they do the
smaller
bigger ones
parcels,
there.
and it would be for virtually any land, my words, that would be in their natural state, be it wetland or whatever. You know, we have a lot of parcels that are 25 acres of wetland or open unused fields or whatever.
Or woods.
Woods, forest as well, yeah. So that they would get a discount on their property tax.
I want to get a discount on being old, very old.
You said it, so we didn't.
Yeah, I have some wisecracks that go.
Can I
Yes,
make one?
bring us back to earth.
So in putting on my hat as president of the Rotary, I just want to thank the community for coming out for Apple Blossom. It was a wonderful community day, and we had support from lots and lots of local businesses and individuals. And of course, in addition to the community festival itself, we use some of those proceeds to support our youth program. So we want to again thank the community for all that support, and the village for all of the assistance in with the project itself. So
it's a great day.
Thank you for all the work behind the scenes, being the
well,
A lot
our
of
Dave
fun.
Wright
The chief
and
and-
Linda Greenblatt are absolutely the leaders of that effort
great.
this year. So
It's great. They do a great job.
Yep.
They do a great job.
My husband was so disappointed he couldn't find the hot dog stand.
the hot dog stand was right in front of the village hall.
I think he thought it was down the street a little ways.
I wasn't here.
So is there any further discussion? If not, you will find in your folder that we have a number of things having to do with contracts that need to be discussed in attorney-client. So I would like to make a motion to go into attorney-client.
So moved.
Second?
Thank you.
Short one?
I mean,
Thank you. All in favor? I need your assent before I tell you whether it's short or long.
Aye.
And we will be
I
back.
think Carrie